Welcome to this Bridgewater Now update. I'm John Luck. We start off with a story that you might have seen on some of the Boston TV news stations, as an East Bridgewater man was arrested by Bridgewater police after he allegedly pulled a gun on another man from Abington for not wearing a mask while inside of a store. This all took place outside of the Walgreens in the center of town back on July 3rd. According to police reports, 59-year-old Todd Goulston from East Bridgewater pulled out a gun after a confrontation with a 30-year-old after he refused to wear a mask inside. Goulston was taken into custody but was transported to a local medical facility after complaining of a medical issue. There were no injuries, but Goulston, who does have a license to carry, was charged with assault with a dangerous weapon, disorderly conduct, and disturbing the peace. Although this is the first time a story like this has happened over a mask here in town, there have been other mask-related confrontations across the country. Odds are we run into situations where somebody hasn't had a mask on when they needed to, especially in a place where they can't socially distance themselves. We don't want to be rude or mean when this happens, but there are some tips from doctors that may help reduce any difficult situations involving a mask. These tips come from Dr. Paul Sachs, who is the clinical director of the Division of Infectious Diseases at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and Dr. Abrar Karan, who is a Harvard Medical School physician. The first tip is choose your battles. Instead of chasing down a jogger on an open street, more attention may have to be given to someone inside of a business or a restaurant. Next, don't shame people, as it hasn't worked in past epidemics and other public health emergencies. Instead, have your mask on and serve as a sort of role model, and hope the person that doesn't have the mask on will be peer pressured into following suit and putting on a mask. Dr. Sachs goes on to say, don't sweat the small stuff. People should not be too worried about briefly passing somebody who isn't wearing a mask. Those extremely casual passes in the hallway or especially outside are not dangerous situations at all. And don't forget, another way to minimize your risk of getting the virus or spreading the virus is by washing your hands repeatedly and using hand sanitizer. July 7th marked the first town council meeting since the town election and the return of District 6 town councilor Bill Wood. Mr. Wood beat out Mark Lindy, who served as a replacement after Wood stepped down from the council at the end of last year. During councilor comments, the returning councilor said the complaints from some about leaving and returning to the council came from fuzzy math from some outside of his district.
We may never know why someone who doesn't live in the precinct is trying to influence how the neighborhood votes. For the past few months, I've heard that I've served 10, 11, or even 12 years on the council. And that's a pretty neat trick, to serve for 12 years on a body that's only existed for 9. Bad math didn't stop the outside voices. Even before I pulled papers to run, the outside voices were trying to find ways to stop democracy and stop me from running for the seat. Voices from outside of Precinct 6 tried to influence the election by saying I was unethical, and then criticized me for being silent against their unwarranted attacks. The math is simple. Districts 3, 5, and 6 on the same election cycle. The first time Pete and I were elected, the ballot before the voters said for 3 years. The second time Pete and I were elected, the ballot before the voters said for 3 years. The third time Pete and I were elected, the ballot before the voters said for 3 years. Simple math. 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9, not 10 or 11 or 12, as the voices from outside of Precinct 6 tried to make the voters believe, using fuzzy math and imaginary numbers. Pete and I are both here legally with our integrity and ethics fully intact. The will of the people inside of Precinct 6 was the only voice that was needed to be heard. I thank them for their support.
A new president and vice president were also named. Sean George, who won his seat in an uncontested race, was voted on as council president, and Matt Rushton will serve as vice president. Mr. George said for Bridgewater to return to what it was, it will be an all-hands-on-deck situation.
We are in very unique times right now. And what I'm trying to do is to keep and continue the leadership of Dennis in his role in working towards a better Bridgewater. What that entails is yet to be determined. We're going to need all hands on deck.
The new council president also thanked his family for allowing him the time to serve in his new role. A reminder, you can watch replays of the town council meetings on Channel 22 or on demand at btvaccess.com. While the COVID-19 pandemic dealt a serious blow to the entertainment industry, turning off the lights in thousands of venues, but thanks to modern technology and an amazing spirit, the show continues to go on. Jeff Fowler has more.
As our calendar flipped to 2020, the entertainment industry was benefiting from an economic boom. The new year rang in with tremendous excitement and promise. And then, At the flip of a switch, our nation paused as we began a long fight against COVID-19. The spread of the novel coronavirus forced concert venues to shut down for what could be close to a year. But thanks to modern technology and the efforts of so many talented musicians, the show has gone on. Members of Juventus New Music Ensemble have kept the music playing with their Stay Home series, featuring talents from across the region, including Central Square Congregational Church's own Minister of Music, Julia Scott Carey. Julia is one of the founding members of Juventus, which was created just over 15 years ago while she and her friends were undergrads.
We were all composers and performers, and we were looking for more opportunities for young composers especially to hear their works performed live. So we've always focused on performing the compositions of emerging composers and people who are currently living, mostly in this country, but some from abroad. And it's really, really special to work with composers and get to know them, have them be a part of the rehearsal process.
Scott Carey knows plenty about the rehearsal process. In fact, working as a rehearsal pianist has paved the way towards an impressive resume.
The biggest part of my career is being a rehearsal pianist for choruses, because every chorus has a pianist that works for them in rehearsals and has a very close relationship with the conductors. Sometimes I get to perform with the choruses, or sometimes I'm preparing them to sing with a full orchestra, so I have to imitate the sound of the orchestra in my playing. I've been very fortunate to work with the Tanglewood Festival Chorus and the Boston Symphony Children's Choir for the past few years, and I've rehearsed with them to prepare to sing with the Boston Symphony and the Boston Pops.
As one can imagine, working with the Pops can lead to some impressive connections.
I've met a lot of really fascinating people through that, especially the conductors of those orchestras, Andres Nelson's, Keith Lockhart, and James Burton, and it's amazing to work with them and all the wonderful guest artists that come through.
Though many can play the piano, Julia has the unique ability to communicate meaning through the keys.
I do try to think about the meaning behind everything I play. I research the composers and the text, if it's a music with text, and the history of the music. All that, I think, adds to my knowledge of the meaning of the music.
And her intense appreciation for the ivory began at a very young age.
I always had a piano in my house growing up from the time I was an infant. And I would play around on it from a very young age. I started actually writing down my own compositions before I knew how proper music notation worked. So I was just a toddler at the time. And then as soon as I started taking piano lessons at age 5, I learned normal music notation very quickly, and I've been a musician ever since then.
During this pandemic, we also learned and shared an appreciation and love for our moms during a special music presentation.
My own mother passed away on the eve of Mother's Day 9 years ago, so the holiday has a very deep emotional meaning for me. But I was very excited putting this program together because I found pieces of music that related to the theme of motherhood. Some of them were older compositions from 100 years ago or so, and some of them were brand new compositions. The most substantial piece that I performed in terms of its length and its emotional depth probably was a piece by Delete Warsaw, First Love Song, and it was about her emotions the first time that her child said, "I love you" to her. And as a mother myself, that was something that I could definitely relate to, so I really enjoyed playing that composition.
Julia has partnered with BTV's Paul Holmes to produce several virtual concerts over the last few months, including a Pentecost performance of pieces from British composer Ralph Vaughan Williams, whose works can be found in hymnals to this day. As one can imagine, sacred music is something that Julia holds close to her heart.
Sacred music is a very large part of my life, not just through church, but through my work as a choral accompanist, because so many of the large chorus and orchestra pieces are based on texts from a Christian tradition. A number of them are sacred compositions. Music is a way that I am able to connect with my spirituality and to share praise and joy.
Julia and her colleagues have been keeping the faith and trying to spread joy in what has been a very tough year for her industry.
This is an extremely devastating time for people in the performing arts industry. In our lifetimes, at least, we've never seen entire concert cycles wiped out across the world. It was shocking to all of us for months to just see concerts we had counted on for months or even years wiped off our calendar. This is also a time for innovation and regrowth and rebuilding, and a lot of artistic reckoning within the musical community. People have been turning to new technologies, doing live stream concerts, and I think we're going to see more and more of that over the course of this next year, and the technology is going to become stronger and stronger. There's a lot of fear among musicians right now for the future, but there's also a lot of hope, and I, for one, am very excited to see where this new stage will lead us.
There are some exciting plans in store for the remaining summer months for both Juventus and Central Square. Julia Scott-Carey will return to the piano in July for a solo concert featuring a tribute to Latin music. In August, she teams up with Kelly Hollis for a performance highlighting Boston composers. And on August 2nd, through Central Square, Julia honors the Justice Choir Songbook. This is Jeff Fowler reporting.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Sticking with the musical theme, we've told you about Music Alley Presents, which you can watch on BTV and BTVAccess.com. The program airs encore performances from the Music Alley Summer Concert Series, which has gone virtual for this year's schedule. A reminder that Music Alley is a nonprofit that relies on the generosity of those in the community to keep great artists performing in the popular setting. If you're able to, you can donate to Music Alley through their website, bridgewatermusicalley.com. Also follow them on Facebook at Bridgewater Music Alley, which is where you can watch the concerts live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. We leave you with a very talented performer singing her original Funeral for My Past. Here's Liz Longley.
Hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. I held a funeral for my past today, laid it in the ground where it's meant to stay, with the roots, the dirt, pain and the hurt. I held a funeral for my past today. I got down on my knees, dug up a mighty grave, made room for all the darkness, the anger and the shame. So deep, it never haunts me, gone forever and always. I held a funeral for my past today. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. While I've been cutting roses, never thought this day would come. Me and my shadow, we were living as one, and every day I tried to fight it. My demons always won, till I stopped fighting, till I let the light in. Oh, I could not help but tremble, I could not help but cry. There was something holy about it, just watching it die. Right there, as I stood right before my eyes, up from the ashes, up from the ashes, my phoenix did rise. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, for your past today. Hey, 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 here's your funeral. Hey, 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 flowers for